Welcome to the Marriage Counselor's Corner. Right this way. Your therapist will see you shortly. In the meantime, sit back, kick your feet up on the couch, and get ready to focus on adding very valuable tools to your marriage toolkit. And now your host and marriage counselor, David Taylor.
What's up? We are back. How you guys doing? My name is David Taylor and I am your host. I would like to welcome you to another information-packed episode. Listen, this one is going to be another good one. I'm excited about the topic. I'm eager to hear some feedback on it. But before I dive in, let me just start with an intro and say, welcome to the Marriage Counselor's Corner podcast. This is the place where you're going to get credible and tangible marriage-related information from a licensed mental health counselor. That's right. You're going to get information about marriage from someone who works with marriages all the time. In some cases, 7 days a week. But anyway, enough of that. Over my past 19 years of clinical experience, I have discovered some things that I believe, and it's really not just my belief, I've seen this proven time in and time out, but I've seen that these things work to make your marriage healthy. So if you're new and if you don't know what the routine is, see these episodes as a masterclass in marriage where I take a psychological and practical approach to marriage education and enrichment. Now, in today's episode, this is episode number 20. Yes, I made it to episode number 20. And I will be discussing another topic on effective communication inside of your marriage. Now, before you tune out, this is not some random, boring topic. Trust me, this information will be very crucial, very important, very necessary to have in your toolkit. Specifically, I will be discussing the difference between linear communication and colorful communication. And again, trust me, you will want to listen to this episode, especially if you are finding that the communication in your marriage is just off, or there's something that's stifled, or you guys are just not connecting with your communication like you used to. This episode will be very useful for you, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Go get your notebook, your journal, your diary. You need to take some notes on this. Husbands, listen to this, okay? Just stay with me. Stay with me. This is going to be information that will be helpful. Your wife will love you. I mean, she loves you already, but she going to love you even more if you could take this information and apply it. Okay? No, listen. This isn't just for the husbands, wives. I need you back, so come on back in the office. This ain't just for him. Come on back, sit down on the couch. I need you in as well. So, let me go ahead and dive in, and you guys have probably heard me talk about this in a previous episode where I talk about the difference between how men think, how women think, the difference between how a man's brain is comprised and how a woman's brain is comprised, and thus how they communicate differently. So I figured I want to take some more time in this episode to specifically expound on this concept. Because again, I believe that if you can grasp it, and you can apply it, it will fundamentally change your communication with your spouse. So first, let me start with a general concept that you will definitely want to understand first before I go deeper into the difference between linear and colorful communication. So I'll start by saying this. The mind of a man and the mind of a woman, it's wired in two completely different manners. Now, if you've ever read this really good book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are For Venus by John Gray, this book kind of touches on this notion that there's just different, like fundamental differences between men and women, how they think, how they process information, and how they communicate. And so if you don't have that book, make sure that you get that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray. Pick it up on Amazon, add it to your library. That way you can at least have this information in your repertoire, okay? But back to what I was trying to say. So in order to understand the differences between how men and women speak, I want you to understand the difference between the mind of a man and the mind of a woman. Okay, so you've probably heard me say this before, and there's a lot of old school teachings on this, not a lot of current stuff. Just look it up in Google and you'll see what I'm talking about. But the mind of a man is like a waffle. It's full of boxes or rooms and compartments. And each compartment, each room, they are separated from any other room. And I'll talk about this more in a minute. But the mind of a woman is like a bowl of spaghetti, of which everything is connected to everything, and where there is no separation of ideas and concepts. So everything is everything for the mind of a woman. Again, I'll talk more about this in a minute. Side note, just so that we're clear, what I'm saying about the mind of a woman and the mind of a man, neither of these are positive or negative. Okay, these are neutral statements. So do not weaponize any of this. One is not better than the other. Both are necessary. They're just differences between how men and women think and thus communicate. But neither one is better than the other. Both are necessary and unnecessary at times. Okay, you hear me? So just stick with me, but do not use this as weapons. Don't say David said, nuh-uh. Or unless you're going to use it and apply it correctly, don't put my name to that mess, okay? Listen, I have people do that all the time. David said, well, yeah, I may have said that, but don't take it out of context, okay? Let's hear what I got to say. Anyway, let me get focused. Let me stay focused. So, for instance, the mind of a husband, I'm going to talk about this for a second. Again, it's comprised of rooms or compartments or boxes. I'll just use the phraseology of rooms. And each room serves an individual purpose. So for instance, there's a work room, there's a marriage room, there's a car room, there's a money room, a job room, career room, sports room, a sex room. Okay, I know that sounds a little awkward there, but you get the point. There are rooms for each of the important areas of his life. And there's a door that allows you access or allows him access to that room. But once he's in that room and once that door is closed, he's only there. So if he's in the work room, he's not in the work room and the marriage room at the same time, right? That's why if he goes to work after an argument, he could check out. He can turn that part of his brain off and just be present on the job and almost completely forget about what just happened on the way to work when the argument took place, right? He can completely tune that out and be right in that room all by himself, working, focusing on his job. Okay. Then after work, if he's going to, I don't know, play golf or go to the bowling alley or whatever, go to the weight room, he's there. He's not contemplating, like, shoot, I've been wearing this argument all day. Nuh-uh. He may even seem to have forgotten it. He didn't. He's just not in that room anymore. Okay. But each room has its own door. And when he's in one room, he's not in any other room. There is no multitasking of imagination. Hear me clearly. There is no multitasking of imagination. One idea does not cause him to be in two separate rooms at once. Now, one idea may cause him to say, let me go to this room, and now I'm in a different room, but he's not in two different rooms at the same time. If he's in one room, that is where he is. Period. Okay? This is important. And fellas, tell me if I'm wrong. This is important, wives. Hear me clearly. Now, wives, you must remember this, for if you make the mistake of assuming that his mind is like your mind, you will find yourself miscommunicating, overcommunicating, and misunderstanding him more often than not. But I'm going to get back to that in a moment. So let me shift gears and talk about the mind of a wife. So for the woman, the wife, her mind will look completely different. Again, this is not positive or negative. It's just different. So due to the multitasking nature of her mind, she is everywhere, all at once, all the time. Now, hear me, because there's some nuance to this. It may sound confusing. Some of it still is, but just follow me. The women, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. But fellas, hear me out with this one. So she is everywhere, all at once, all the time, which is why it may seem like your wife worries much more than you. Okay, let me keep going. She exists in a complete state of harmonious uniformity, where all it takes is for one idea to be triggered, and then she is there in that room while also simultaneously in another room that echoes the same emotion. I know I said that fast. I'll say it again for the fellas because this is important. Women, I know y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. So she exists in a complete state of harmonious uniformity where all it takes is for one idea to be triggered, and then she is there in that room while also being simultaneously in another room that echoes the same emotion. Think of it like, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, where like if you have your regular mirror in the bathroom and then you have a medicine cabinet mirror and you kind of open that medicine cabinet mirror and it kind of sends a cascade, like an infinite reflection of mirrors. Think of that as your wife's mind. Okay? This infinite reflection. And it's like it's an interesting phenomenon. If you look in the mirror the right way, you see all these mirrors and it goes on for infinity, or at least until it gets small enough to where you can't see it. But this is how her mind is. And she has full access to peer into any of those mirrors individually or all at once. Yes. Are y'all lost yet? Okay. And I'm not saying this to be facetious about the mind of a woman. I think it's fascinating, but I think it's so fascinating that it's like we can't comprehend. Just like how a sperm and an egg inside of a woman's body can create a baby. It's fascinating. I don't understand. I can't comprehend it. I just know how it works. Okay. So husbands, as difficult as this is to understand, you must, hear me clearly, you must work hard to grasp a hold of this concept. For if you don't, you will miss a huge, tremendously huge part of who your wife is, and you will consistently find yourself coming up short and not meeting her desires and expectations, especially in the area of communication, especially there. So, now that I've kind of put this out there and talked about how men, your brains are like waffles, and women, your brains are like spaghetti, right? Now that I've talked about that, what does this have to do with linear versus colorful communication? Well, think of it from this angle. So because men don't often emotionally multitask in their communication, they will often speak from one point to another point, literally one point to the next point. He will speak in the manner that he thinks. So again, remember, he thinks in terms of location, meaning the room in his mind that he's currently in. Because he's thinking from that position, he will also speak in that manner as well. So he will struggle with giving you dimension, with giving you depth, with giving you context, unless absolutely required to do so, because his default is to talk from one point to another. You got that? His default is to talk from one point to another. And the path that he takes will often be linear in nature. And what is the shortest distance between 2 points? A straight line. Okay? None of this curved mess, none of this zigzag, a straight freaking line. Okay? You got to hear this, wives. This is important. So he will communicate to get his point across, and he will use the fewest amount of emotional distractions and even the fewest amount of words to do so. So he's not communicating through this colorful lens of emotion. He's not communicating to have an experience or to connect. He's communicating to express from one point to the next. And usually it comes in the form of solution-seeking comments and phrases that will help to summarize the conversation sooner than later. He ain't trying to stay there all day. His communication will be for the expressed purpose of finding a conclusion to the conversation. After all, for him, The point of talking is to give you the conclusion or solution to whatever it is being discussed. So he will answer the question as it is asked. Nothing more, nothing less. Please hear me. Resist the temptation to get frustrated with this, wives. Hear me clearly. Don't get frustrated with what I just said. Instead, invite yourself to be open, because this is going to help you, and I'll give you some tips. I'll give you a few, okay? And then I'm going to talk about y'all. So don't worry, I got you covered. But again, remember, he's going to struggle to just give you dimension, depth, and context just out of the blue, right? He's not communicating to do that. His communication is going to be concise, very linear, and not as detailed as perhaps you would want it to be, wives. So if you ask him the dreaded "how was your day" question, just know that you are setting him up to miss what you really want to know about his day, and you're setting yourself up to perhaps have more frustration and disappointment inside of that conversation. He will not freestyle. This is not a rap battle. This is not about him trying to have the most poetic, creative way of expressing himself. He's not going to freestyle in this communication. Instead, he will give you the straightest line between your question and the conclusion of that conversation. So he will most likely say something like, it was cool, or it was all right, or it was good, a good day today. That's all he's going to give you, right? Those are linear responses. Wives, do not penalize him for being who he is and communicating in a manner that is common to him. If you want more context, if you want more dimension, if you want more color, you will actually have to ask him the exact question that you want an answer to. So, something like this. This is a question you could ask instead of "how was your day?" Those are too linear. Here's a better question to ask. And remember, I talk about in my book, The 37 Laws to Mastering Marriage. One of the laws is the law of the right question. You have to do better at asking questions, not just wives, but husbands as well. But here's a better question to ask. What was the most exciting part of your day today? Or what was interesting about your workday? Right? See, these questions will challenge him to give more than just the linear response. And before you try to, just hear me for a second, okay? Before you try to over-romanticize communication in marriage, I know I may get myself in some trouble, but I'm good. I'm Gucci, okay? Just hear me out. Before you try to over-romanticize communication, this is how men are. This is how we are. So stop believing what you read in these romance novels or what you see played out on TV. Don't even believe what he showed you when y'all first met at the beginning of the relationship when he was spitting game. No, he's a linear communicator. So he's not going to just give you all of the details of his day. That's just not how he's wired. So if you want those, you will have to ask for those, okay? I know women want the ideal version of their man, who is someone who can read their minds and over communicate and express out of the abundance of their heart and share all those things. There are some exceptions to the rule, but those are the exceptions, not the rule, okay? So there are some men who are more comfortable giving more, and there are some men that talk a lot, okay? Some, not all. Most won't, okay? So just keep that in mind. Now, let me transition and talk about the wives and husbands. Listen very closely. I need you to lean in for this, okay? What I'm about to share with you can truly revolutionize your marriage if you take heed, but you need to take heed, trust me. See, y'all thought I was just going to talk to the wives. Nah, bruh, I need you to listen. Women can't help but to communicate in color because of how their brains are wired. Remember, their brains are like spaghetti. Imagine right now what a bowl of spaghetti looks like. There are probably, 50 to 100 different strands of spaghetti in there. And it looks like they're all connected because you can't tell where one strand starts and where one strand ends. But this is how the mind of a woman, of a wife, is wired. That means that everything in their worlds are interconnected. Everything in their world, everything, it's interconnected. The interconnected nature of their minds lends itself to them also having an interconnected nature within their communication. Stay with me, okay? They speak how they think, just like we do, but in a completely different manner. See, she speaks with color because this is how she experiences the world. Even if she is seemingly asking a linear question, it is often fueled by layers of different colors. Colors that each are associated with a different experience. So, if she asks you how your day was, hear me out, she is not looking for a short and linear response. She wants to hear the details, the context, the emotion, the drama of your day. For her, the details, the context, and the emotions matter because this is how she experiences her world. See, this helps her to see and thus feel her most connected to you. So the more detailed you are, the more communicative you are, the more connected she feels. And remember, fellas, connection equals protection. Connection equals safety and security. Connection equals love. See, her understanding of you is often shaped by how much dimension you provide in your communication. And please be warned, she cannot turn this off. She can manage it, but her brain is constantly looking for context, color, and dimension. This is how she's wired. Accept it. It's not a bad thing, okay? So, if she asks you whether or not this dress makes her look fat, as an example, and I know this is a little bit of a, just taboo example, but if she asks you that, or if she asks you if you really care for the homemade pizza that she just cooked, don't force her to fill in the gaps because you chose to give her the most non-detailed response possible. Give her color, or at the very least, try your best to do so, okay? If she says to you, "Oh, do you love me?" do not just and exclusively say yes. Instead, tell her why you love her. Tell her what about her you love and how much you actually love her. All three of those things should be added to your answer. Otherwise, a simple yes forces her to try and answer those other questions on her own. And she will rack her brain trying to figure it out. And then she'll think about the fact that you didn't tell her this, and all of a sudden now, maybe he really don't love me. He's just trying not to hurt my feelings. All of a sudden, she's going to be thinking those thoughts, and she will find herself in a completely different place. All because you gave her a linear response. Husbands, do not lose patience with her because of her requiring more from you than perhaps you are comfortable giving her. I'm going to say that one more again. Yes, I know, one more again. Now, I'll say that one more time. Husbands, do not lose patience with her because of her requiring more from you than perhaps you are comfortable giving. Instead, understand that this is how she experiences her world, okay? If you want just a linear response, let her know that you desire a more concise response for now, and that you would love to revisit the conversation at a later and perhaps more convenient time, right? It's up to you to say that extra part. Even that is adding more context, more dimension, more color than just saying, getting frustrated with her and getting, saying things that will perhaps offend her. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll communicate through irritability, which will only give her more questions to brood over. Husbands, one of the hallmark roles and functions of a husband is to protect our wives. Protect her mind by being more descriptive in your speech towards her, okay? This is how you also protect your wife. It ain't just about your muscles and the gun you got stashed. It's also about your ability to communicate and ask better questions, okay? Do you see how this is all integrating together? Okay, so guys, both husbands and wives, hear me out for a second, because I see these types of communication patterns all the time in my sessions with couples, and I see my fair share of couples throughout the week. And it is really easy to wind up forgetting this stuff, right? Because we often don't think about how we communicate. If you think about it, we don't really think about how we communicate. Instead, when we're communicating, we often think about what we want to converse or communicate about, what we want out of the conversation. So we're aiming towards that more so than, let me be mindful of how I'm communicating with my spouse. So to be better, you will have to be extremely mindful of this concept, okay? This is a very overlooked communication skill, but to be better, to improve, and to become more of an efficient communicator in your marriage, you're going to have to be mindful of this. So here's what I want you to do over the next week or so. I want you to practice this skill set, okay? Husbands, practice recognizing color and practice giving more color in your communication patterns, okay? This is something that you're going to have to practice. It's a skill. It's something that will not grow on its own because you're used to being linear. So in order to grow and be better, you're going to have to use this. Practice this consistently. And I just did a podcast episode where I talked about the healthy husband habits, and everything rises and falls on consistency, okay? And wives, practice understanding the linear nature of your husband and practice resisting the temptation to interpret his communication with your colorful lenses all the time. Not everything needs to be interpreted through color, okay? Calm your mind, still your mind. You don't have to always take what he says and then filter it through a colorful lens. Sometimes it is what it is. Or as people say now, sometimes I said what I said. Okay? So just resist the temptation, though, to do what is common and natural all the time. Instead, ask him for clarity and context. Okay? Ask for clarity and context so that your mind is not automatically filling in the gaps. So ask better questions. Okay? And if there's something you want to know, ask for that specifically. Do not be sitting here asking a general linear question and then upset that he gave you a linear response, and now all of a sudden you're interpreting that as, oh wait, he don't love me that much, or he don't care for me that much, or perhaps I get on his nerves. No, you asked him a very straightforward question. He gave you a very straightforward response. Do not be chasing two rabbits and expecting that somehow using your linear questions is a barometer for how much he loves you. That stuff will create a lot of tension and a lot of conflict. So don't do it, okay? So I want you guys to practice this. And listen, I wanted to just be brief today because I want to do a bite-sized session on one topic that you guys need to practice, and I want you guys to practice it. So I'm not going to give you more. I'm going to resist the temptation to keep talking, because if so, I will fill your ears with more information, and ain't nobody got time for that. Y'all got to go and practice, okay? So go ahead and practice that. So what we'll do, though, because there will be a time where I will give you a boatload more information, like hours worth. Soon, we will be starting up our Mastering Marriage virtual workshops. And these are going to be the places where I can go even deeper. I mean, like deep with these types of concepts. So think of us having a session with 50 couples, and I talk about this concept. And then I say, hey, now, couple A, right? Whoever y'all are, I want you guys to role play this. And I want to see the husband practice communicating more colorfully. And what we're going to do is we're going to critique. We're going to talk about what you did good, what you could do better. And then I want to see the wives do the same thing. And then we're going to critique and we'll break it down and we'll say, yes, this was great. This was not so much. This was you using color when perhaps it was just best to just keep it here. Put a period there, okay? We're going to practice that. And that'll give you guys nice, honest, safe feedback, but an opportunity to really start to stretch and condition these muscles in a manner that perhaps it's harder to do when there's just the two of you guys, okay? So be on the lookout for that. We're going to be doing these sooner than later. But in the meantime, until we get there, you're going to have to live with these episodes, okay? So live with these episodes, or you can do what so many people have already done. So many of my listeners, reach out to me. Shoot me an email at david@marpeservices, MARPE services.com, and see if you want to schedule a consultation, if you want to schedule a session. Listen, I've already met some very wonderful people who have been listeners, and now we're working together. So hit me up, reach out to me, and I can help you out. So we'll wrap up here, though, because I'm already, this is good. This is a good time. Not even over 35 minutes, so this is good. So let's wrap up here, and I want you guys to practice. Listen to this again. Take some more notes. Practice, and, eventually you guys will get to meet us on our virtual workshops or even in person. And listen, guys, it is my desire that both you and your spouse use this information to take your marriage to the next level. Remember, I'm all about marriage enrichment and ultimately marriage education. So use this to grow and improve the communication. And remember, you only get out of your marriage what you put into your marriage. So you don't get out of your marriage what you want from your marriage. That's not how it works. So just because you want something don't mean you're going to get it. You only going to get out what you put in. So these sessions, messages, these teachings, put it into your marriage, and trust me, you'll reap the benefits, okay? Anyways, I want to say thank you guys for coming to another session at the Marriage Counselor's Corner podcast. Join me in the next episode where we're going to talk about another very important topic that you don't want to miss out on. And there may be a small shift that takes place in the future because for many of you guys, if you guys don't know, I have just started the dissertation phase of my PhD, and it requires everything that I have. And so I may have to move from weekly sessions to bi-weekly sessions, meaning every other week you get a new podcast instead of every week. I'm still deliberating and contemplating that and discussing that with my wife. But in the meantime, expect to get these episodes still on a consistent basis. Whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, you will get new content, okay? Anyway, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. Leave me an honest rating and a review. Make sure you're sharing this, liking, commenting, promoting this stuff to other people who may need it. And that way, those who need it will have more access to these episodes. Do me a favor. Make sure that if you have any questions, email me, reach out to me. I don't bite, okay? And otherwise, I will look forward to speaking with you guys in episode number 21. And in the meantime, do your homework, be strategic, be focused and smart, and I will see you guys later. Deuces.
Thanks for stopping by for your seat on the couch at the Marriage Counselor's Corner. Remember, go to marriagecounselorscorner.com to schedule your next session. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss a session. We look forward to having you back on the couch soon. Bye-bye now.